take it, but you already knew that. Don't get in my way. I will not allow you to triumph.
I said my sword was a tool of justice. Not used in anger. Not used for vengeance. But now I'm not so sure.
Throughout the history of the world of video games, there's been many iconic characters that one can give a name to. But the ones that are most prolific and are held in high regard is Vergil and Raiden. Both with similar paths, one mortal and one immortal, and both of characters of which are highly versed on using a sword and understanding techniques which make them leaps and bounds above most people. In mirror reflection, you're both looking at the same character, both with the same past, which is both tragic in its own right. These guys have submitted a legacy that is far beyond any other video game character within history. You could say that they are the face of video game characters of all time, especially in this day and age, in 2023. All one simply has to do is type in the name of the characters and you can already see the impact they've amassed on YouTube. The storm that is Vergil, and the lightning that is Raiden. So join the voice box as we discuss the most iconic characters in game history.
I am the storm that is approaching.
I am the thunder, the raging storm, plagued by darkness since I was born. The only thing I've ever known is how to fight a war, but right now I don't know what I'm fighting for. I'm a soldier of hell, and with my tool of justice I will prove to the world.
Every character's history is important, because their past defines who they become in the future. Vergil, born with demon blood, tragically lost his family, as demons sent by Prince of the Underworld Mundus set his home ablaze. During the attack, Vergil was playing alone at a playground a few yards from the house, when he was most likely ambushed. He eventually found himself in the cemetery surrounded by demons, and upon seeing his house burning in the distance, Vergil awakens his inner demon and kills all the demons with the Yamato. Vergil then, believing his mother had abandoned him, actually would die in the fire. Clearly traumatized and feeling angry at this event, and Vergil would eventually be confronted by Mundus in Devil May Cry 3, which is debatable whether he defeated Mundus.
It'll be fun to fight with the Prince of Darkness. If my father did it, I should be able to do it too.
And in Devil May Cry 1, Vergil would be under control of Mundus's directions, under the name of Nilo Angelo. Vergil having no power over his will. Said to be dead at that point, Vergil makes a return in DMC 5, suggesting that he was free from the clutches of Mundus. And Raiden suffering a very similar fate to Vergil. Aside from him not having demonic blood and having supernatural powers, Raiden was no stranger to the art of war at a young age, in where his parents would be killed by Solidus. Raiden became very desensitized as a child, becoming easily manipulated and shaped into becoming a killing machine. And just like Vergil, no doubt has some sort of childhood trauma, which invokes feelings in order to take justice and action towards those who made it happen.
I can never forget.
Jack.
I'm afraid of the night. That's why I don't sleep next to you.
You should have told me.
Told you what? That I'm a killer? And always have been?
No.
What I hate more than anything else in the world is my own past. I didn't want you or anyone to know about it. Now I know why I was chosen for this mission. No one can take him on, take him down, except me. I've been kept alive this long for this. I knew as soon as I saw Solidus.
And that's exactly what Raiden would do. Although he wasn't fully over his trauma, he would finally cut a part of it off and finishing what started it once and for all. And just like Mundus, the Patriots being a form of AI control, which in a sense still is immortal, but of course with its weaknesses, things can be shut down. And Raiden, just like Vergil, is a puppet with no will as it is under control of the Patriots. If Raiden does not complete his mission, the child of Olga would die, Sonny, along with Rose and eventually Raiden. One can see how Vergil and Raiden's life almost mirrored each other in comparison, both having tragic histories and being under the thumb of a controller. Whilst Vergil may have retained his will and his faculties, Mundus, being like the Patriots, somewhat of a overseer of things that needs destroying and eventually defeating. One can hope when Devil May Cry 6 comes out, if it ever does, that these two bros can finally put aside their differences, because let's face facts, they don't get on at the best of times, but this is probably the most healthiest relationship you've seen them in the middle of battle, joking with laughter. But then again, this is war, not a nice walk in the park, so what do we expect? But one can hope that in the next sequel that we get an eventual defeat of the guy who caused all this pain to begin with. Fuck you, Mundus.
Seem to recall you crying every time Father raised his voice.
How would they feel if they saw us now?
What does it matter? We're still here, aren't we?
Yeah, you're probably right.
And if we're talking skills, yes, Vergil would outdo Raiden on a biological level. If we're talking about Raiden with his cybergenetic enhancements, then that's a whole different ballgame. In Metal Gear Solid 4, Raiden's abilities and enhancements are limited at this time, as cybergenetics are not as advanced as it is in Metal Gear Rising. But even at this point, he still proved that he's quite more than capable of taking on several armored gecko. His cybergenetics give him super enhanced superhuman skills, which can make him throw around tons of heavy metal. But due to Vergil's demonic heritage and carrying the skill of Sparta, he has the ability to pull out all kinds of different moves at super quick succession and speed. His strength is so super inhuman that on the biological level, he does not need cybergenetic enhancements. And Vergil's durability is so capable of taking brute force attacks without showing any signs of damage. And because of his heritage, he can heal instantly as soon as whatever it is injuring him and has been removed from his body. He is strong enough to come out unscathed from a strike from the rebellion that would otherwise bisected him. His healing factor is extremely strong that when Vergil is physically exhausted, his healing powers work almost at full strength. But after his return to the human world, Vergil's body was breaking down due to unknown causes. And as for Raiden and his durability, he can take several shots because his body is synthetic, and therefore it can easily be replaced in terms of body parts. When he lost his arm or his eye, Raiden would be just given a new exosuit that would make him 10 times more powerful than he is now. If we're talking on the level of what Vergil and Raiden would be competing at, Raiden's ultimate form was during Metal Gear Rising. Because hypothetically speaking, if Raiden was to compete against Vergil at this stage, he would be more than capable as this suit practically does superhuman things. The perfect example is Batman vs Superman, Batman being Raiden and Superman being Vergil, as Superman has supernatural abilities, whereas Batman relies on his gadgets and skills. The only trouble that Raiden runs into is experience, because Raiden is a human being, mortal, whereas Vergil is something of the underworld. He's a supernatural being, if you like. So one can imagine that he has lived for maybe hundreds of years, so he has tons of experience under his belt. And I imagine the only way of defeating Vergil is by defeating him in the underworld, as his human form can live and die many times. So hypothetically speaking, Raiden would have to be summoned in the underworld in order to defeat Vergil. The reason why I say Vergil may have all this experience is because if you look at the family photo, it looks like they've been around for quite some centuries. And that would make Vergil quite dangerous in combat for a mortal man. So it's not just only that as well, it's the fact that he's utilized the Yamato blade so well, and that when he's in Devil Trigger, just makes him near enough impossible to fight for any ordinary being. But then again, Raiden isn't any ordinary man. Vergil's abilities seem to be almost endless, as Vergil is able to imbue his demonic power into objects to augment them. He mostly uses his demonic power to create weapons that can be used for various purposes. Since reuniting his human and demon halves, Vergil is able to create a doppelganger of himself to aid him in a battle against his opponent, hence using some form of trickery. And not just that, he has the ability to use advanced teleportation abilities that is used strategically to reposition himself around the battlefield, making him a real pain in the ass to fight in combat. And with the Yamato blade, sometimes he'll use it in order to teleport himself somewhere different. And with the force field generation, Vergil can also project a spherical shield made of demonic energy around his body whilst prepping his devil trigger. Although it also seemed to last a few seconds, the shield is strong enough to protect him from every manner of attack. The shield can also generate a repulsion field that prevents enemies from getting close. Sheesh. That is the storm that is approaching. I don't think an umbrella's gonna cut this one, guys.
Wow, this thing got real big. You trying to compensate for something?
Yes. Your incompetence.
Raiden has fought many great opponents in his time, and he's always come out on top being the victor. But with Raiden's superhuman speed, it enables him to run extremely fast for great distances. According to the reports, he is also running as faster than the speed of sound, which is ridiculously fast. And he can swing his sword faster than a human eye can see, but Vergil isn't human. And to be honest, when you look at the sword swinging contest, you'd say that Vergil would probably win this one because his sword slinging skills are just second to none. But Raiden was also capable of running fast enough to scale walls without falling. And after Raiden was to lose his eye, he'd be issued an optical implant by Dr. This gave Raiden the edge in battle as it displayed a hood screen on his visor, which would display absolutely everything in his environment, including incoming attacks so he knows when to block and parry. And just like Vergil's devil trigger, Raiden has the Jack the Ripper persona when activated, which renders him painless and an absolute savage in combat. You could say that it almost makes him otherworldly in a sense.
Foolishness, Dante. Foolishness. Might controls everything, and without strength, you cannot protect anything, let alone yourself.
So what is Vergil's goal? Well, the community have long speculated that it may have something to do with his childhood trauma, in feeling powerless when his family was attacked by Mundas. Through most of Vergil's journey, he sought nothing but power. It didn't matter what got in the way, he was gonna get it nonetheless. It didn't matter that there was casualties or anything else. He became cold, calculated. You could say from all that had happened to him, one had been changed entirely, that he wanted to live up to the expectations of his own. The guy sought power at all costs, even fighting his own brother. To simply put, you could just say that it was trauma that caused all this. But this one will be up for speculation, as there is many fans out there that appreciate and love this character. You could say that Vergil's goals was justified. There is no right and wrong in terms of war or any situation, especially when it comes to the underworld. Anything that usually comes from there is quite evil anyway. But Vergil's probably misunderstood, as he has done some good things by trying to keep the demonic forces out of the earthly realms. And during the end of DMC5, it looked like Dante and him had patched things together, which you can only speculate that in DMC6 they might join forces to put an end to a greater evil. Just like many anti-heroes in a story, you can't just initially call them outright evil. He is driven by something that has disturbed him through his trauma in his past. An outright evil villain is someone who is just born and intended to be that way regardless of what has caused it. So, what do you guys think? Is it trauma, or is it power, or maybe it's both?
You need to hide, Dante. No matter what happens, you mustn't leave. I need to find Vergil. I promise I'll be back. I know this is hard. You must listen to me. Be a big boy. A man, huh? If I don't return.
So Raiden, unlike Vergil, wasn't out for his own goals. Sure, he wanted to strike out and pave his own way, but at the same time he wished to help others who was suffering in a similar situation as himself. Raiden made something positive of his trauma by helping those who were in need such as himself. Raiden was very selfless as a character, usually putting himself in front of others in order to protect them. I mean, just look at Metal Gear Solid 4 where he jumps in front of that big giant arsenal gear for Snake. And there's times where he tried to save the president and other several people at the same time. Raiden makes it his duty to protect the weak. And it's very honorable and commendable, because unlike Vergil, who lets his trauma get in the way of making decisions, Raiden seems to use it in a positive way to help those who need it. His whole entire goal is to protect the weak and shut down systems that wish to control the entire planet, such as the Patriots. You could say Raiden's goal is not one of power, but one of protecting those who are less fortunate.
I need more power.
No. My sword is a tool of justice.
So both Vergil and Raiden are both forces of nature that are unlike any other character in video game history. Everybody has a favorite, which one they decide is more suited to their taste. But there's no doubt, they've changed video game history for the better. With soundtracks unlike any other game, it's quite easy to get immersed in the worlds of both Vergil and Raiden, which me and my friend thought that it would be a great idea if there was a crossover between Vergil and Raiden in a multi-like universe. Their ideologies might set them apart, but their past and history and their skills are very similar. You could say that these two are the ultimate form of motivation. And speaking of motivation, guys, hit that like button and hit that subscribe button. It motivates me to make more base content I know you guys love. Once again, this has been The Voice Box. Thank you for watching.